Hello viewers. It's a very distinct pleasure for me to be here today and have the golden opportunity to address you all. Today I'll be sharing with you all the audiobook created by Optime. Here you can listen the summary of a book called My Journey. This book is about Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, where he is sharing his life journey with all of us. To listen his story and all the upcoming inspirers, do give it a thumbs up and subscribe our channel and press the bell icon for any further notifications. So, without wasting any further time, let's begin our story summary recorded by Srishti Srivastava and programmed by Gaurav and Krishna. Today, we will start with chapter 1 named My Father's Morning Walk. For as far back as I can remember, my father, Jainulabuddin's day began at 4 a.m. He would be up before anyone else in the household. After saying his prayers in the breaking light of the day, he would go on a long walk to visit his coconut grove. We lived in Rameshwaram, a small temple town on an island in Tamil Nadu. This, being on the east coast of India, dawn would break early and our day's schedule followed the rhythm of the rising and setting of the sun and the sea waves. The sound of the sea was a constant presence in our lives. Storms and cyclones blew by with regularity during the tumultuous monsoon months. We lived in an ancestral home, a fairly large house made of limestone and brick, built sometime in the 19th century. It was never luxurious, but was filled with love. My father had a boat building business. Additionally, away, we also owned a small coconut grove some 4 miles from our house. That was where my father would be headed for in the early morning hours. His walking circuit was well established and he rarely deviated from it. First, he would step out into Mosque Street, where our house was located. It was My Journey, a small, predominantly Muslim locality not too far from the Shiva temple that has made our town famous for centuries. He would then walk through the narrow lanes of the town, onto and finally the more open roads leading to the coconut groves, wend his way through the groves to his patch of land. Today, I try to imagine him walking on those quiet roads long before the day made its many demands on him. Ours was a large family, and I am sure there were many pressures on him to see to our needs. But at that hour, I think of him listening intentionally to the sea, to the ever-present ravens and other birds that swooped and flew all around, woken up by the rising sun like him. Perhaps he said his prayers to himself as he walked, or thought of his family with a calm, uncluttered, early morning mind. I never did ask him what went through his mind on this long daily walk, for when does a young boy really have the time to reflect in this way about his father? But I was always sure that the morning walk added something to his personality, an element of calm that was apparent even to strangers. My father was not a person with much formal education, neither did he ever acquire much wealth in his long lifetime, yet he was one of the wisest, truly generous men one have. The fortune of knowing. Our mosque was the focal point, the locality, and my father was the man everyone turned to in of their hour of need. They believed that he was truly connected God. I remember going to the mosque to say my prayers with him. He made sure we never missed any of our prayers, neither did it enter our minds to shirk this duty. After saving our namaz, when we would step out onto the road, groups of people would inevitably be there, waiting to talk to him and share their worries with him. What did these men and women see in him? He was not a preacher nor a teacher. He was just a man who lived by his convictions and the tenets of his religion. What did he give them? I now think that it was his mere presence that calmed them and gave them hope. He said prayers for them, and many people would offer him bowls of water. He would dip his fingertips in them and say a prayer, after which the water would be taken away to be given to the sick. Later, many of these people would come to the house and thank him for having cured their near and dear ones. Why did he do this? And where did he get the peacefulness and generosity of heart to talk to people, comfort them, and for them? In the midst of the busyness of his own life, pray he was a humble boat owner. Life was certainly not easy for him. What with finding the best ways to make ends meet in a tiny temple town cut off from the mainland. Yet, never once. Ashish. Unburdened, did I see my father turn away anyone who wanted to himself by talking to him? Without doubt, he was a deeply spiritual man with some kind of connection with God. I believe his spirituality from being a learned man. He knew the scriptures and could bring out their essential truth to even the youngest inquiring mind. When I asked him questions, he would always reply and attempt to explain in simple, straightforward Tamil. Once one asked him, "Why do these people come to you? And what do you really do for them?" His reply still stays with me. Nearly 5 decades later, whenever human beings find themselves alone, as a natural reaction, they start looking for company. Whenever they are in trouble, they look for someone to help them. Every recurrent anguish, longing and desire finds its own special helper. For the people who come to me in distress, I am but a go-between in their effort to ward off demonic forces with prayers and offerings. Then he went on to tell me something about prayers and its power over man that still resonates, despite my years in the field of scientific research. He said to look for help outside is never the final answer. One must understand the difference between a fear-ridden vision of destiny and the vision that enables us to seek the enemy of fulfillment within ourselves. When my father's morning walk troubles come, try to understand the relevance of your sufferings. Adversity always presents opportunities for introspection. His advice meant that in the many setbacks and defeats that Rini has handed me, I have always been able to look within for sixth strength. I travelled far, far away from life in Rameshwaram. My journey took me to places I had never imagined visiting, from the cockpit of a fighter jet to the highest office in the nation. Yet, it was always his words that came back to me. There is a divine power that looks over us, that gently lifts us from our sadness and failures and miseries. If we open our minds and let it, it will guide us to our true place. Release yourself from the bindings that limit you and let that power overtake your mind, and that's when you will be on the road to true happiness and peace. This is what I imagine him saying to me whenever I am worried. I am now 82 years of age. Like him, my day, even today, begins with a walk. Every morning I savor the sight of the new sun, the beginning light in the sky before the sun appears, the cool bridge and the sweet call of the birds. I understand how this short time of the day binds us to the nature. Each morning is different in the way the elements come together for that day. It is a little drama nature puts up only for us, and I can't stop marveling at it. Unlike him, I often find myself in different cities and towns in the mornings because of my travels, but the early morning peace and calm is the same everywhere. Wherever I am, I can find a tree that is great with age, where birds dwell, go busily about their day with a new dawn, whose leaves and maybe a warm wave gently to me in the morning bridge. It day or a bitterly cold, misty morning when the air in front of me, but this time away from the cares and my breath fogs, worries that the rest of the day will invariably bring means much to me. At my home in Delhi, there is a grand old Arjuna tree. Somehow, fate always pull me towards it when I walk in my garden. It is usually laden with honeycombs and is home to hundreds of birds, especially parrots. The dignity, beauty and stature of this tree brings memories of my father to mind, and I even have silent conversations with it. Once I wrote this poem where I imagined that the tree would say to me if only it could, "Oh my friend Kalam, I crossed edge 100 like your father and mother. Every day morning you walk an hour. I also see you on full moon nights, walking with a thinking mood. My father's morning walk, I know. My friend, the thoughts in your mind. What can I give? The great tree in my home. As I walk wherever my life has led me, I often think of my father. In minds, I see a simple man who, even when he was of a great age, continued to walk every my eye and sow morning to his coconut grove. As I see him, I imagine how it's been almost an hour since he set off, and the crackle tree of the grove is also up and going about his day. When my accent father walks into his plantations, the men hail each other with warmth. Perhaps Jalaluddin sits down somewhere a while. The and other man climbs a coconut tree. He chooses half a dozen and coconuts and cuts them down with a swing of his knife. These fall with a thump to the ground. The man quickly makes his way down. Then he proceeds to tie them up together into a neat bundle. Now the two men sit companionably for a while. They discuss the state of the trees. They peer up at the sky, talk about rains and pests and other matters of the soil. Finally, Jainul-Abidin picks up his bundle of coconuts, says goodbye, and begins his walk back home. He will give away a few coconuts to neighbors and others. The rest will find their way into qums and chutneys prepared by my mother. I still remember sitting down to those simple meals and enjoying immensely smooth, creamy coconut chutney my mother placed on the plate. It is a taste that has lingered in my mouth even later, made sweeter still knowing that it contained the love of my parents and their honest hard work. That's all for today. We'll come to you with the next chapter very soon. You can share your experience in the comment section. Thank you all.